If you're wondering whether the Yoto Player is for you and your child, then this review will answer all of your questions. I have two girls, aged 6 and 8, and we have been trying out the Yoto Player for a few weeks now, so I've had some time to figure out how it works. The girls have got to grips with it, they've been enjoying it, so I wanted to let you know what we think about it, how it works, whether it's worth the money. First of all, what is the Yoto Player? Well, put simply, it's an audio player that plays a range of content that is suitable for children between the ages of around 3 and 12. However, I think that you can slightly adjust those age ranges, and I'll talk about that a little more in just a minute. The type of audio content you can get to go with the Yoto Player include stories, non-fiction content, educational content, and music. What sets the Yoto Player apart from other audio players is the very cool pixel display on the front, which changes depending on what content is being played or what your child is doing with the Yoto Player. Accessing the audio to play on here is super easy. Your child either uses a Yoto card, which they insert into the top. Kids absolutely love doing this, switching through the cards, being able to pull it out to pause the content. Or there's also free audio content via the Yoto app. So there is a Yoto daily podcast, and there's also a Yoto radio station. In order to access both the Yoto daily podcast and the Yoto radio station, your player will need to be connected to Wi-Fi, and it's also going to need to be connected to Wi-Fi in order for you to go through the initial setup. It also needs to be connected to Wi-Fi the first time you play a new Yoto card. So when it's connected to Wi-Fi, when you first insert a card, it's going to download the story into the internal memory. Thereafter, if you're out and about or Wi-Fi's down, whatever, that content is going to be stored in here, so you're okay to not be connected to Wi-Fi. So what I'm saying is, it doesn't always have to be connected to Wi-Fi, but you will need a Wi-Fi connection to get it started and on an ongoing basis to access all of the content. So how do you actually use the Yoto Player? It is really, really simple. So as you can see, it's a box. You've got your screen here, which has just gone to sleep because I've currently got it unplugged. You've got your screen here with the pixel display. At the moment, it's just got time and a little sort of weather display there just to show that it's daytime. When it's nighttime, the moon comes up. This here is volume. The dial on the left is volume. Turn volume up and down. You just twist it. This one here, if you tap once, it will go and play. There we go. This is now playing the Yoto Daily Podcast. Push it again and it will go to radio, Yoto Radio. So not general radio, it will just go specifically, I'll turn that off, it will just go specifically to the Yoto radio station. So your child isn't going to be accessing all sorts of different radio stations with this. It's literally just the Yoto radio station. So, and I think that's one of the big pros of this actual device, is that they are only accessing content that is pre-approved for kids, that's appropriate for kids. They're not out there in the wild west of all sorts of different audio or radio content. It's literally just the Yoto approved content that is specifically aimed at your children. And finally, on the controls, if your child is playing one of the Yoto cards, they can skip through chapters using this dial. They just hit it to select, so they can skip chapters to their favourite bit of the book if they want to. If they want to pause a story, they just take the card out. Easy. If they want to resume, all they do is put it back in. They don't have to skip through trying to find where they were. The speaker remembers where they were when they pulled the card out, which I think is really great. The on-off button is just down here, and this under here is the charging port. One of the great things about this in terms of its suitability for young children is that it comes with a magnetic docking station that it just is, obviously because it's magnetic, it's just drawn to the point. Your child isn't trying to force a very tiny connector. They don't have to worry about whether they're getting it the right way round. It literally just sticks to the bottom like that. So you can have it on charging. So my daughter, the way she's been using it is kind of like a bedside clock that does a whole bunch of really, really cool stuff, like reads her stories. So she has it on the charging dock pretty much all the time. Once it's fully charged, you've got 10 hours of playback. So you can see there, it's showing you how much charge it has. Generally speaking, you'll have 10 hours of playback. It may vary a little bit depending on what you're actually using the player for. Certain activities, certain audio will drain the power a little bit quicker. So I've gone through how your child operates the Yoto Player, and just to add, there is a little connector here for headphones, just in case you don't want to hear the delightful story that they're listening to, just in case you want a bit of quiet time. There is a headphone jack just there. So that's how your child uses it, but there is an app that provides you with control over the settings of the player, what is being played through it. You can also see what your child has got downloaded to the player. So complete control is given to you in the Yoto app. So as you can see here, this is the player's app. I'm just having a look at the settings. So it will go into morning mode, 7:30 in the morning. There'll be a particular colour light. I can adjust the brightness there. I can adjust the volume, which I think is really great. So if I'm sick of them playing it at full blast, I can turn it right down. I can adjust what the button shortcuts are. I can adjust like what they do. Does it play radio? Does it do a toothbrush timer? Does it do a tidy up timer? So all those things I can set there. Bedtime, I can set the colour of the night light. There's a few different options there for colours of the night light. I can also turn it off and on from there. And again, I can adjust the night volume. So it goes into night mode at 7:30 p.m. And if I decide, hey, you know, I want it to be a bit quieter at night when they're listening to a story on there, I can adjust it. So I can see in the app when something is playing, and I can hit pause if I want to. So if I want my child to just take a little break for whatever reason from listening to the story, then I can go into the app and hit pause. So you as the parent have total control over the player. In the app, you can also have a browse of the free content. For example, there are things like sleep sounds here, natural sounds. So these are things that you can play for a toddler, say, at nap time, just to help to soothe them to sleep. And there's a Yoto sleep radio, as well as the normal Yoto radio that you would play in the daytime. I would say the Yoto Player is pretty easy to use once you know how. I think it just takes a little bit of getting used to at first, just figuring out which each of the buttons does. And then for some reason it took me a while to figure out how to get the night light to work. I don't know why, but basically you just put it face down and the night light comes on, and then as I've shown in the app, you can change the different colours of the night light. But it wasn't intuitive to me that I have to put it face down in order for the night light to come on. And actually I don't think that is a particularly great feature. I would much rather the night light came on while it was upright and displaying the clock, because I found that my daughter actually quite likes having the clock function at her bedside. So me placing this face down takes that away from her eye line. When she first wakes up, she'd have to pick it up to see the clock. So I'm not a huge fan. I wish the night light could be displayed without having to put the Yoto Player face down. Yoto says that the Yoto Player is for ages 3 to 12 plus. There's certainly a huge range of content for all of those different age groups. There's hundreds of different types of Yoto cards in the Yoto store, which you can buy online. What I would say is that although obviously you wouldn't allow a baby or a toddler to fiddle around with this on their own, certainly not a baby, a toddler you definitely have to supervise. There are sounds and stories available for the Yoto Player that would definitely appeal to them. For example, for a baby, you could use the white noise, which is free. You can find it in the app and can be played through the Yoto Player. White noise might be really useful for nap time and bedtime for a baby and for a toddler. And the toddler may enjoy some of the younger stories, nursery rhymes, classic stories, that kind of thing. As to whether it's suitable for 12 plus, I do think it looks cool as a bedside table clock, and obviously there are some older books. There's a lot of Roald Dahl books, a lot of Marvel story books as well, the superhero stories. However, I kind of can't help but feel that once the child gets to 12 plus, they're probably going to be more interested in a smart tablet, in having a smartphone, if you're giving your child them that at that age. So I definitely think this is best aimed at the 3 to 10 kind of age range. If you're considering whether or not to buy the Yoto Player, then you've probably also seen the Toniebox is a very, very similar product on the market. There's a couple of very, very key differences with it. Instead of cards, it uses these Tonies characters, which sort of magnetically are attracted to the top, so they don't fall off. And that's how you play your audio. It's got buttons, 2 buttons. So again, very similarly, a very, very basic set of controls. It's also charged via a docking station. It's squidgy instead of hard like the Yoto Player. Then you've also got the Yoto Mini, which is kind of like the travel version of the Yoto Player. Couple of key differences here. It's charged using a USB cable instead of a docking station. Has a much taller screen. It still does the pixel display, so you still get a pixel display. It can also play all the same Yoto cards as the Yoto Player can. It's just much smaller, it has longer battery life, and as you can see, it's much more portable. So if you're looking for a player that is going to be travelled with a lot, then this is probably the option for you. It's also cheaper. In terms of whether you pick the Toniebox or the Yoto Player, I would say it really comes down to how much you love the pixel display, and do you think your child would prefer the Tony's characters that come with it. So for example, say if they buy the Gruffalo, they get a little Gruffalo figure, and whether they'd like that. Now some parents argue that if their child has figures like this, that they will just play with them and they'll get lost amidst all of the other toys that are in their playroom, whereas other people say actually this is quite nice and engaging, but you know, you may think that actually the screen is pretty cool. Now, the screen isn't really distracting from the content, it's more enhancing the content, the type of different pixel graphics that come up there. It just really comes down to your own personal preference. What do you prefer? What do you think your child will like best? I mean, if I'm being completely honest with you, chances are they'll like both, and they're very comparatively priced. What are the pros and cons then of the Yoto Player? Well, super easy to charge. It's got this really fun pixel display. There is an amazing selection of content for your child to enjoy on the Yoto store. You can also buy Yoto cards on Amazon and other retailers. My children have got a Disney pack, they've got a Roald Dahl story, they've also got a Rainbow Fairies collection of stories as well. Really nice selection of things. I think the nightlight function is cool. As I said, I wish that you didn't have to place it face down in order for it to work. And also another big pro is, you know, it's safe. It is completely ring fenced off from the wider internet. There's no microphone in here. It is not controlled by your voice at all, unlike say like an Amazon Dot or an Amazon Kids Dot device. So what are the cons? I would say it is quite expensive when you consider that if you want a really budget option, you can just find free stories being read via YouTube. There's all sorts of free content on there, and there's also lots of sort of free storytime content that you could find online. It's not as portable as the Yoto Mini, which is super handy. However, it wouldn't be the worst thing to travel with, and you can buy cases. Another con would be that I think the Yoto cards, the cost of those would add up. I think they start from around the £7.99 mark, go all the way up to about £20 or so, and that would be for a pack that has multiple cards in. So there's an ongoing expense involved in buying your child new cards. What's my final verdict then on the Yoto Player? I think this is a really fun device. It's easy to use, your kids will really enjoy it. It's a fantastic way to enhance their love of story time. I know that some parents may have a concern that you're replacing parent-child interaction of reading books with this, but actually we still have a bedtime story where I read with them, they read to me, or I read to them with actual books, and then they might just play with this in the day. If they've got sort of 20 minutes where they need to occupy themselves, they'll go and sit down and listen to a book while they're colouring in at their desk, or they might listen to 10 minutes of a book while they're trying to fall asleep. Although this is quite an expensive toy relatively, I think that your child will get many hours of use out of it, and we absolutely love ours. I really hope that you found this review useful. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next upload. Bye!